Today we're going to take a look at Jesus's teaching ministry and see exactly how significant it was. We think sometimes that Jesus just went about doing great things and miracles and signs and wonders and fulfilled the redemptive work of God, but we got to see how he got there, and we need to see how important it was, how valuable it was for Jesus to teach. And if you have your Bible, I'm going to have you open it to Mark chapter 6 and read this story. Some of it's familiar, but some of it has not been emphasized here of late. Uh, Mark chapter 6, it says, "And he went down out from thence, and he came into his own country. And his disciples came with him." So he had disciples, and I'm talking about many disciples, not just 12 yet. He hadn't even appointed 12 yet. He just had a bunch of followers coming that believed in him. And it says in verse 2, "And when the Sabbath day was come, he began to teach in the synagogue." That was the first thing Jesus did. He would teach, he would preach, and then he would heal. It says, "And when on the Sabbath day, when it was come, he began to teach in the synagogue, and many hearing him," hearing intensely, hearing intelligently, having ears to hear, hearing and gaining faith, you could say, like that. Many hearing him, they were astonished, saying, "From whence hath this man these things? And what wisdom is this which is given unto him? And that even such mighty works were wrought by his hand." So they had also heard of Jesus after he had lived in this town of Nazareth for so long, had started traveling, started having disciples, and now he comes to his own church, his own local church in Nazareth. He starts teaching, and the people are amazed. But there are many people that believe because they heard intensely and they rightly divided it. But then there was jealous rulers that were involved in there, in the synagogue. And it says in verse 3, someone asked the question, "Is not this the carpenter, the son of Mary, the brother of James and Joseph and Judah and Simon? And are not his sisters with us also?" And they were offended with him. Now, they were offended with him. And Jesus talked about, he said in verse 4, it says, "A prophet is not without honor, but in his own country and among his own kin and his own house." So his own brothers and sisters at this time, particular time, did not yet believe in Jesus, had not yet been Jesus's disciples. But now all of a sudden Jesus does the remedy of the situation. It says here in verse 5, "And he could there do, because of their unbelief and their offense in what he was saying and who he was, saying he was the Messiah, he could there do no mighty works, except that he laid his hands upon a few sick folks and healed them." And it says in verse 7, verse 6, "And he marveled because of their unbelief." He couldn't heal them because of their unbelief. He marveled because of their unbelief, and then he went up round about the villages teaching. That was his remedy, to teach the people when there was unbelief that was there. When he could, now he wanted to heal people. He came to that synagogue to heal his own people, his own loved ones, his own family members, his brothers, his sisters, but he could not get them persuaded. And so he went and left that synagogue and went into the surrounding towns and villages close by, and he began to teach. He taught first. He wanted to build up the faith of people with his teaching ministry and his preaching ministry so that he could do miracles, that he could heal the sick and relieve the sufferings. And of course, in many cases, when people came to hear and be healed, as we looked at, Jesus healed all kinds of diseases, and he cast out all kinds of unclean spirits among the people that were being vexed by them. That was his will, or I could say it this way: that was his Father's will, but here Jesus himself could not fulfill God's will. Now, some people believe today that everything that happens is God's will, that it's all been predestined long ago to be predestined. Well, how come it wasn't predestined here for these people? And why did Jesus even bother to try to heal the people or lay hands on the people? And so this is a very important aspect of Jesus's ministry, and we also see this as the Apostle Paul came on the scene. He was a despiser of Jesus Christ, heard about him, had never heard him particularly, never saw Jesus rise from the dead, never saw Jesus raised up or caught up into the heavens. And he was going out taking people to jail, men, women, and their children to jail. He was holding the coats of Stephen, and then he was converted. He then afterward tried to join himself to the apostles that were in Jerusalem, but he was rejected by them because they thought he was a bad person. And then another man came along, and his name was Barnabas, and he brought Paul to the synagogue, or to the Jewish, the Christian elders, and convinced them that he had a true conversion to Christ. Then we read here, and I'm going to close with this. This is found in Acts chapter 11 as Paul begins to start his ministry. He's not a prophet yet. He's not an apostle yet. He hasn't been separated. This is Acts chapter 11. Chapter 13, he is separated by God and sent out as an apostle to the Gentiles and to the Jew and to kings. But it says here in Acts chapter 11, verses 19 through 22, I want to encourage you to read the entire context, that Barnabas, when he was assigned by the elders in Jerusalem to go as far as Antioch to teach, the first thing he did of note, and God wanted us to know this, he went and he looked for Paul and found Paul in his own hometown, who was serving God at that time. But he took him into Antioch, brought him in there, and it says that they taught for a year in Antioch. It didn't say that they prophesied, didn't say that they healed anybody. There's no record here of any signs, wonders, and miracles taking place. They just taught for an entire year before they were called out to be an apostles themselves. And when they became apostles, then suddenly the signs and wonders began to fall on all kinds of people and all kinds of things. So keep that in mind as you get your studies. And we're going to continue this series because I want to talk about the Apostle Paul, because he never missed an opportunity or chose used an opportunity to preach the gospel to the lost, or an opportunity to teach nations, to confirm saints, to strengthen the brethren, to continue in the faith. And we'll see why that was so important. So even as an apostle, Paul was a man that was a teacher as well. He realized the importance of building people up with logical explanations of the things of God, and then the things of God began to happen. You have a good day, and we'll talk to you about this further in the next session. God bless you.